Anon it came about that Zal desired to see the kingdom. And he set forth, and there followed after him a goodly train, and when they had journeyed a while they marched with pomp into Kabul. Now Myrabe, who was descended from Zohak the serpent, reigned in Kabul, yet he was worthy, prudent, and wise. When he heard that the son of Sam, to whom he paid tribute, drew nigh unto the city, he went out to meet him, and his nobles went with him, and slaves bearing costly gifts. And Zal, hearing that Myrabe was at hand, prepared a feast in his tents, and Myrabe and his train feasted with him until the night was far spent. Now, after the king was gone, Zal praised his beauty. Then a noble rose up and said unto him, O Zal, thou knowest not beauty since thou hast not beheld the daughter of this man. For she is like unto the slender cypress, her face is brighter than the sun, her mouth is a pomegranate flower. When Zal heard these words he was filled with longing, and sleep would not visit his eyelids for thinking of her beauty. Now, when the day dawned, he opened the doors of his court, and the nobles stood about him, each man according to his rank. And presently there came from Kabul Myrabe the king to tender morning greeting to the stranger without his gates. And Zal desired that Myrabe should crave a boon at his hands. Then spake Myrabe unto him saying, O ruler mighty and great, I have but one desire. And to bring it to pass is easy. For I crave thee that thou dwell as guest beneath my roof, and let my heart rejoice in thy presence. Then Zal said unto him, O king, ask not this boon at my hands, I pray thee, for it can in no wise be accomplished. The Shah and Sam would be angered should they learn that I had eaten under the roof of Zohak. I beg of thee ask aught but this. When Myrabe heard these words he was sore wrothful, and bent low before Zal, and departed from out the tents. And the eye of Zal looked after him, and yet again he spake his praises. Then he bethought him of the king's daughter, and how that she was fair, and he was sunk in brooding and desire, and the days passed unheeded over his head. Now it came to pass that on a certain morning Myrabe stepped forth from his palace to the house of the women to visit Simurgh his wife, and her daughter Rudabeh. Truly the house was like to a garden for color and perfume, and over all shone those moons of beauty. Now when Myrabe had greeted Rudabeh he marveled at her loveliness, and called down the blessings of heaven upon her head. Then Simurgh opened her lips and questioned Myrabe concerning the stranger whose tents were without their gates. And she said, I pray thee tell unto me what manner of man is this white-haired son of Sam, and is he worthy the nest or the throne? Then Myrabe said unto her, O my fair cypress, the son of Sam is a hero among men. His heart is like unto a lion's, his strength is as an elephant's, to his friends he is a gracious Nile, unto his enemies a wasting crocodile. And in him are even blemishes turned to beauties, his white locks but enhance his glory. When Rudabeh had listened to these words her heart burned with love for Zal, so that she could neither eat nor rest. And was like unto one that hath changed her shape. And after a while, because that she could bear the burden thereof no longer, she told her secret to the slaves that loved and served her. And she charged them tell no man, and entreated of them that they would aid her to allay the troubles of her heart. And when the slaves had listened to her story, they were filled with fear, and with one accord entreated her that she would dismiss from her heart one branded among men, and whom his own father had cast out. But Rudabeh would not listen to their voice. And when they beheld that she was firm in her spirit, and that their words were vain, they cast about how they might serve her. And one among them who was wise above the rest opened her lips and spake, O moon-faced beauty, slender cypress, it shall be done at thy desire. Thy slaves will neither rest nor slumber until the royal youth shall have become the footstool to thy feet. Then Rudabeh was glad and said, And the issue be happy, there shall be planted for thee a noble tree, and it shall bear riches and jewels, and wisdom shall cull its fruits. Then the slaves pondered in their hearts how they should compass their end, for they knew that only by craft could it be brought about. Straightway they clothed themselves in costly raiment, and went forth blithely into the garden of flowers that was spread beside the river's bank without the city. And they gathered roses, and decked their hair with blossoms, and threw them into the stream for sooth-telling, and as they gathered they came unto the spot over against which were pitched the tents of Zal. Now Zal beheld them from his tent, and he questioned them concerning these rose-gatherers. And one uprose and said unto him, they are slaves sent forth by the moon of Kabul into the garden of flowers. Now when Zal heard this his heart leaped for joy, and he set forth unto the river's bank with only one page to bear him company. And seeing a water bird fly upwards, he took his bow and shot it through the heart, and it fell among the rose gatherers. Then Zal bade the boy cross the water and bring him the bird. And when he had landed, the moon-faced women pressed about him and questioned him, saying, O youth, tell us the name of him who aimeth thus surely, for verily he is a king among men. Then the boy answering said, What? Know ye not the son of Sam the hero? The world hath not his equal for strength and beauty. But the girls reproved him, and said, Not so, boast not thus vainly, for the house of Mythology holdeth a son that o'ershines all besides. And the page smiled, and the smile yet lingered on his lips when he came back to Zal. And Zal said, Why smilest thou, boy? What have they spoken unto thee that thou openest thy lips and showest thy ivory teeth? Then the boy told unto him the speech of the women. And Zal said, Go over yet again and bid them tarry, that they may bear back jewels with their roses. And he chose forth from among his treasures trinkets of pearl and gold, and sent them to the slaves. Then the one who had sworn to serve Rudabeh above the rest craved that she might look upon the face of the hero. For she said, A secret that is known to three is one no longer. And Zal granted her desire, and she told him of Rudabeh and of her beauty, and his paw, Shaun, burned the more. And he spake, Show unto me, I pray thee, the path by which I may behold this fair one, for my heart is filled with longing. Then the slave said, Suffer that we go back to the house of the women, and we will fill the ears of Rudabeh with praises of the son of Sam, and will entangle her in the meshes of our net, and the lion shall rejoice in his chase of the lamb. Then Zal bade her go forth, and the women returned to the house rejoicing and saying, The lion entereth the snare spread forth to entrap him. And the wishes of Rudabeh and Zal will be accomplished. But when they were come to the gates the porter chid them that they were gone without while the stranger sojourned in Kabul, and they were true, bled and sore afraid for their secret. But they stilled his wrath and came unto where Rudabeh awaited them. And they told her of Zal, the son of Sam, and of his beauty and his prowess. And Rudabeh smiled and said, Wherefore have ye thus changed your note? For a while back ye spake with scorn of this bird, reared youth, on whose head hang the locks of a sage, but now are ye loud in his praises. Then Rudabeh began privily to deck her house that it might be worthy a guest. With brocades of rum and carpets of ind did she hang it, and she perfumed it with musk and ambergris, and airs did she cause to bloom about the rooms. And when the sun was sunk, and the doors of the house were locked and the keys withdrawn, a slave went forth unto Zal, the son of Sam. And she spake unto him in a low voice, Come now, for all is ready. And Zal followed after her. And when they were come to the house of the women Zal beheld the daughter of the king standing upon the roof. And her beauty was like unto a cypress on which the full moon shineth. And when she beheld him, she spake and said, I bid thee welcome, O young man, son of a hero, and may the blessing of heaven rest upon thee. And Zal answered her benison, and prayed that he might enter into nearer converse, for he was on the ground and she was on the roof. Then the peri-faced loosened her tresses, and they were long, so that they fell from the battlements unto the ground. And she said unto Zal, Here hast thou a cord without flaw. Mount, O Pallava, and seize my black locks, for it is fitting that I should be a snare unto thee. But Zal cried, Not so, O fair one, it would beseem me ill to do thee hurt. And he covered her hair with kisses. Then he called for a cord and made a running knot, and threw it upwards and fastened it to the battlements. And with a bound he swung himself upon the roof. Then Rudabeh took his hand and they stepped down together into the golden chambers, and the slaves stood round about them. And they gazed upon each other and knew that they excelled in beauty, and the hours slipped by in sweet talk, while love was fanned in their hearts. Then Zal cried, O fair cypress, musk perfumed, when Minocair shall learn of this he will be angered and Sam also will chide. And they will say I have forgotten my God, and will lift their hands against me. But I swear unto thee that this life is to me vile if it be not spent in thy presence. And I call upon heaven to hear me that none other but thee will I call my bride. And Rudabeh said, I too will swear unto thee this oath. So the hours sped, and there arose from out the tents of the king the sound of drums that announced the coming of the day. Then cried Zal and Rudabeh of one accord, O glory of the world, tarry yet a while, neither arrive so quickly. But the sun gave no ear to their reproaches. And the hour to part was come. Then Zal swung himself from the battlements unto the ground, and quitted the house of his beloved. Now when the earth was flooded with light, and the nobles and chiefs had tendered unto Zal their morning greetings as was their wont, he called about him his Mubids, and laid before them how that he was filled with love for a daughter of the serpent. And the Mubids when they heard it were troubled, and their lips were closed, and the words were chained upon their tongues. For there was none of them that listed to mingle poison in the honey of this love. Whereupon Zal reproved them, and said that he would bestow on them rich gifts if they would open their mouths. Then they spake and said unto him that the honor of a king could not sooth fare by a woman, and though Myriah be indeed of Zohak's race, he was noble and valiant. And they urged him to write unto his father and crave psalm to wait upon the Shah. Then Zal called unto him a scribe and bade him write down the words that he spake. And he told unto Psalm his love and his fears. And he recalled unto him how that he had cast him out, and how that he had lived in a nest, and a bird had reared him, and the sun had poured down upon his head, and raw flesh had been his nourishment the while his father had sat within a goodly house clothed in silk. And he recalled the promise given to him by song. Neither did he seek to justify that which was come about. Then he gave the letter to a messenger, and bade him ride until he should be come into the presence of Psalm. When Psalm had heard the words of his son his spirit was troubled, and he cried, Woe unto me, for now is clear what hath so long been hidden. One whom a wild bird hath reared looketh for the fulfillment of wild desires, and seeks union with an accursed race. And he pondered long what he should answer. For he said, If I say, Abandon this desire, so no discord, return to reason, I break my oath and God will punish me. Yet if I say, Thy desire is just, satisfy the passions of thy heart, what offspring can come to pass from the union of a deeve and the nursling of a bird? And the heart of Psalm was heavy with care. So he called unto him his Mubids that they should search the stars, for he said, If I mingle fire and water I do ill, and ill will come of it. Then all that day the wise men searched the secrets of fate, and they cast the horoscope of Zal and Rudabeh, and at even they returned to the king rejoicing. And they found him torn with anguish. Then they said, Hail unto thee, O Psalm, for we have followed the movement of the stars and counted their course, and we have read the message of the skies. And it is written, A clear spring shall issue into the day, a son shall be born to Zal, a hero full of power and glory, and there shall not be his like in Iran. Now when Psalm had drunken these words, his soul was uplifted, and he poured gifts upon the Mubids. Then he called to him the messenger of Zal, and he gave him pieces of silver, and bade him return unto his master and say, I hold thy passion folly, O my son, but because of the oath that I have sworn to thee it shall be done at thy desire. I will hie me unto Iran and lay thy suit before the Shah. Then Psalm called together his army and set forth for Iran, and the sound of trumpets and cymbals went before him. Now when the messenger was come back to Zal, he rejoiced and praised God, and gave gold and silver to the poor, and gifts unto his servants. But when night was come he could not close his eyes in slumber, nor could he rest during the day. Neither did he drink wine nor demand the singers, for his soul was filled with longing after his love. And presently there came out to him a slave, and he gave unto her Psalm's letter that she might bear it to Rudabeh. And Rudabeh rejoiced also, and chose from among her treasures a costly crown and a ring of worth, and bade the woman bear them unto Zal. Now as she quitted the chamber she met Sindocht. And the queen questioned her and said, Whence comest thou? Reply to all my Tyans, neither seek thou to deceive me, for already a long time do I suspect thy passing to and fro. And the woman trembled as she heard these words, and fell down and kissed the feet of the queen, and said, Have pity on thine handmaiden, who is poor and gaineth her bread as she can. I go into the houses of the rich and sell to them robes and jewels. And Rudabeh hath this day bought of me a tiara and a bracelet of gold. Then said Simurgh, Show unto me the money thou hast received for the same, that my anger be appeased. And the woman answered and said, Demand not that I show unto thee that which I have not, for Rudabeh will pay me tomorrow. Now Simurgh knew that these words were feigned, and she searched the sleeve of the woman, and lo! She found therein the tiara that Rudabeh had broidered with her hands. Then she was angered, and commanded that the slave should be bound in chains. And she desired that her daughter be brought into her presence. And when she was come, Simurgh opened her mouth and spake, saying, O moon of noble race, to whom hath been taught naught but that which is good, how hast thou gone astray upon the paths of evil? O my daughter, confide unto thy mother thy secrets. From whom cometh this woman? For what man are destined thy gifts? When she had heard, Rudabeh was abashed, but after a while she told all unto Simurgh. Now when the queen had heard, she was confounded, for she feared the wrath of the Shah, and that he would raise Kabul to the dust for this mischance. And she went into her rooms and wept in her sore woe. Then presently Mythology the king came in to Simurgh, and he was of joyful mind, for Zal had received him graciously. But when he beheld her tears, he questioned of her grief. Then she told him how that his daughter was filled with love for Zal, the son of Song. And when Mythology had heard her to an end, his heart also was troubled, for he knew that Kabul could not stand before the Shah. Miraculous, too, when he had heard these things, was troubled, for he beheld in them the device of Ahriman, and feared lest this union should bring evil upon Iran. And he bade Nader call Sam before him. Now when Sam heard the desire of the Shah, he spake and said, I obey, and the sight of the king will be a banquet unto my soul. Then Sam went into the presence of Miraculous, and he kissed the ground, and called down blessings upon the head of the Shah. But Miraculous raised him and seated him beside him on the throne, and straightway began to question him concerning the war, and the deeds of Mazandaran. Then Sam told him all the story of his battles. And Miraculous listened with joy, though the tale was long, and when Sam had ended he praised his prowess. And he lifted his crown unto heaven and rejoiced that his enemies were thus confounded. Then he bade a banquet be spread, and all night long the heroes feasted and shortened the hours with wine. But when the first rays of morn had shed their light, the curtains of the Shah's house were opened, that he might hold audience and grant the petitions of his people. And Sam the Pahlava came the first.